life has been on this planet for 3.5 billion years, having survived, thrived, and diversified ever since. Most pale environments kind of show us an afterimage of this struggle, with animals only being able to leave one skeleton, or one set of footprints, or one burrow if they are lucky. This doesn't give us enough to go by to understand how these creatures lived that time forgot. There are hundreds of Lagerstätten which can show us a glimpse into the past, like the Burgess Shale, or the rock and phosphates, or even the North American Morrison Formation, each telling their own story. However, the story I find most interesting is that of the Posidonian Schiefer of southern Germany. This Posidonian Schiefer does have a global deposition. However, I found that the most interesting is the Bavarian archipelagos of the Tethys Ocean, which was formed during an 8 million year span of time in the Toarcian, which lies between 182 and 174 million years ago. This deposition is recognizable by its laminated dark oil shells, which represent a soupy substrate that was formed during an anoxic environment at the bottom of the seafloor, which did allow for finely grained sediment to produce highly detailed fossils, preserving both soft tissue and hard tissue, as well as preserving the original mineral content of these animals. The highly laminated nature of the Posidonian Schiefer can show a variety of different fossils in each stage of life, and some in different forms of preservation. Each of these can tell their own story about how life was like during the Jurassic, and how difficult it was to survive even a day. I think there are two fossils I have which show just how futile life was like back for them. The first one is of the ammonites. Now, most of the ammonites that are found in the Posidonian Schiefer are found in these shell slabs, each of these preserving the original pyrite and aragonite shells, and they come in these mass mortality beds as they mostly died due to forces of nature. Now these are Dactyloceras, same as this ammonite here, found from Robin Hood Bay in North Yorkshire. What would happen is these ammonites, which could only really exchange gases throughout each of these chambers, increasing or decreasing their buoyancy, would be subject to the currents. That would change any direction they were going in, as their tendrils at the back would be too weak for any form of propulsion. What this means is that when there were any stormy weathers or monsoons, these ammonites would be subject to the current as well. They could either slam into cliff faces, to coral reefs, or even just to the seafloor itself, which would kill the animal inside. Once it dies, it would sink to the bottom of the seafloor into the soupy substrate, and slowly over time, with an increasing pressure of the sediment, would be layered with other life forms, which would themselves die and be preserved until the pressure is too much and these ammonites would be completely flattened. Now, this is a unique form of preservation among most of the Lagerstätten. However, this is very common for any invertebrates found in the Posidonian Schiefer. Most invertebrates, such as the ammonites, belemnites, bivalves and brachiopods, would come in these mortality plates due to the weather conditions. Although it was a lovely tropical marine environment on terrestrial side, in the ocean it was just as dangerous as ever. The other fossil I have, which I believe sheds some light into the futility of life during the Jurassic, has got to be the ichthyosaurs. Now, this ichthyosaur specimen was found in Ormenden, and it shows exactly how that animal would have died, even in such a small chunk. These ichthyosaurs, the Celturidae, were specialised to hunt in the twilight zones of the ocean. They would go to the very top of the water column. They'd taken a deep breath in their lungs, which were expanded as these ichthyosaurs had larger rib cages and elongated snouts. They would then dive down into this twilight zone per se, and they would hunt the squid. Now, what would have happened is that after they've caught them, they would return to the surface as quickly as possible, as this twilight zone was very popular for even larger ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and the pliosaurs. The pliosaurs are most likely to hunt these ichthyosaurs as they waited in these twilight zones, and when the ichthyosaur came close, they would munch on them and they would crush most of their skeleton. As you can see here, many of the bones were crushed and split into pieces before being preserved. So This half the ichthyosaur would have been completely eaten. This would have fallen down to the seafloor and quickly been layered on in the substrate. Although, unlike the ammonites, as these bones were much more thick, they would not be fattened as easily. I think both of these fossils tell us the story of how no matter what you do in life, there's always someone who is waiting there. There's always an outside force that could change your life in an instant, for the better or most likely for the worse.